Before watching my video, my tour of the American Embassy in Iran, please listen to this video. Debate inside the American Embassy, Tehran, Iran, Canadian versus Iranian. Before the start of the tour of the American Embassy in Tehran, Iran, on December the 4th, 2017, the embassy tour guide, Mohammed Reza Shoghi, asked us, an elderly couple, a young Iranian man, and myself, what did we think of the Iranian demonstrators overrunning the American Embassy on November the 4th, 1979, seizing and holding 52 American diplomats and employees as hostages for 444 days? I alone replied, saying that it was very wrong of the Iranian government to have done this, and that there are far more civilized ways for Americans and Iranians to have resolved their differences. And I thought Mr. Shoghi might denounce me as a Yankee lackey. But instead, he just softly said, I understand, but the Americans were spying on us. We agreed that no nations which are friends with each other should not be spying on one another. Mohammed Reza Shoghi then told us that the American hostages were treated like honored guests. Well, I disagreed, telling him of one incident of some male hostages being stripped to their underwear and forced to undergo what turned out to be a mock firing squad execution. Mohammed Shoghi and my own personal Iranian guide insisted that that was a lie, but I stuck to my statement. Mohammed Shoghi told us that the Americans were spying on the Shah and even his personal phone calls. He claimed that the Shah asked the Americans to stop listening in on his private calls. Well, I asked that since the Shah was a friend of the United States, what were the Americans looking for? What were they hoping to find by eavesdropping on the Shah's private conversations? Mohammed Reza Shoghi replied, I don't know. Mohammed Reza Shoghi claimed that an agreement had been reached, the Algiers Accords, between America and Iran, that in exchange for the release of the 52 hostages, all Iranian financial assets in the United States would be transferred back to Iran. The hostages were released first, but then the Americans broke their word and refused to release any financial assets of Iran that were invested in America back to Iran. Well, I told Shoghi that that's not the proper procedure. Iran should have got the money first, then released the hostages. Why did the Iran government not do it that way? Shoghi replied that he didn't know. I asked Mohammed Reza Shoghi if it was true that the Iranian Revolutionary Guards train at the embassy. No, he replied. I couldn't resist pointing out that the anti-American murals painted on the stairwell walls, the word terrorist had been spelt wrong, one R in terrorist instead of two, and Shoghi said nothing. Mohammed Reza Shoghi astonished me when he made the claim that former Iranian President Saeed al-Hassan Bani Sadr was an American spy working to overthrow the Islamic government of Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Shoghi said that by meticulously putting together papers that were shredded at the American Embassy, the Iranian Revolutionary Guards discovered that the former first president of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Saeed al-Hassan Bani Sadr, was an American spy. While it is true that Bani Sadr made a failed attempt to overthrow Ayatollah Khomeini, I could find no evidence that Bani Sadr was an American spy, and Bani Sadr now lives in Paris, France, under police guard. I pointed out to Shoghi that if only America and Iran had remained friends, the terrible Iran-Iraq War, September 1980 to August 1988, in which 1 million fine young Iranian men were killed, would never have happened. America would never have allowed Iraq to attack Iran. and Shoghi said nothing. We were shown a picture of Iran Air Flight 655 with passengers and crew totaling 290 that was shot down by missiles fired from missile cruiser USS Vincennes into the Persian Gulf. And this happened on July the 3rd, 1988. And there were no survivors. Shoghi said that the Americans deliberately shot down a civilian plane. And I replied the shooting down of Iran Flight 655 was a terrible accident. We saw a poor sound quality propaganda film lasting about 10 minutes. This film, among other things, had the narrator state that America sells chemical weapons to any interested buyer. And I told our guy that that was simply not true. Shoghi said nothing. Well, at this point, I decided that I had better shut up, as I am in the Islamic Republic of Iran and not Canada. The statues in front of the embassy of a surrendering U.S. Marine and of the Statue of Liberty with a dove imprisoned inside are gone now. Finally, I have chosen to keep my debate with Mohammed Reza Shoghi separate from my video tour of the American embassy in Iran for personal safety reasons, as again, I was in the Islamic Republic of Iran. Thank you for watching. So it's December the 4th, 2017, which also happens to be my mother's 93rd birthday. Happy birthday, Mom, from Iran. And we are standing in front of the American embassy, and hopefully this time we'll be able to get an entrance into the embassy. Just right at the entrance, this says in Farsi, "Down with the USA." And also just to the right of the entrance, Ayatollah Khomeini. What we see here in Farsi in yellow are all the insults that Ayatollah Khomeini had for Americans. Okay, and now we're entering the embassy grounds and building. I'm with my guide. I'm with my guide Arash, and this, of course, is a world-famous place.
چند تا بازیکننده دیگه هم داره. اگه چند دقیقه مثلا
Pentagon cooking. passport terrorist.
About the history of this place, and as you know, the hostage crisis which happened in 1979, and it started from the November the 4th, 1979. But the story does not begin from the climb from the walls by some group of Iranian students on that day. If you want to return to 1 month earlier, the last king of Iran, Mohammed Reza, who ran away during the revolution from Iran, after a few months he was accepted in the United States. And if we want to go earlier, back to 1953, American and the British intelligence services, they carried on a coup in Iran. They collapsed the government of Prime Minister Dr. Mohammed, socialist and nationalist, a person who was very popular, nationalized the oil industry of Iran. And then, as the Americans felt that it was a threat for them, they collapsed the government of Prime Minister, retained the king, who ran away from Iran, went to Italy, again to the Iran, to the power and throne. So when the king of Iran was accepted in the United States after 9 months from the revolution time, a small group, up to 300 persons of the Iranian students, they felt that it can be another coup to stop and collapsing the revolution. So they first of all decide to take over American embassy, seize this place, take the personnel and the staff just as a hostages for 23 days to pressurize American government and force United States for returning the Shah to country for the judgment and trial. But as the American refused, hostage crisis took 444 days in Iran. This place, this building was the main building of embassy, main office. It was actually built in 1951 or 1952 by an Austrian architecture engineer, the man who had built the main building of Pentagon in the United States too, and also this place. Nothing has been changed. Most of the place, corridors, rooms are quite similar like before. And right now, this corridor, second floor of this building, has been converted to the museum you are going to visit today. It was called maximum security floor. It was used only by military advisors of the United States Army, intelligence agents of CIA, and American ambassador. The normal diplomats usually didn't work at this place. You have visited the first and the main entrance of this corridor. It was a heavy locked door protected this place. So at the beginning of the hostage crisis, on the early morning of November 4th, when the students came into the garden in this yard, they could see all the buildings except this place. American Marine and Guardians closed and locked all the heavy locked doors at this building. Wasted the time for 2 hours to destroy top secret classified documents. Then, after that, they opened the door themselves and let the students to come inside this floor. And about this room. It was called the glass room. It was used for top secret negotiations, meeting and speech, conversations between the American ambassador and the intelligence security agents of CIA. Nothing has been changed. It is completely original. They pay attention to the thickness of the wall and the door, and 2 air conditioners located at the 2 sides of the wall. And then this second door and skin layers of aluminum to prevent the penetration any kind of a signal of radiation from outside of the building. Maybe by the Soviet Union and other governments. So this room was quite soundproof, airproof, and radiation-proof. That most of them had been broken by American Marines during 2 hours resistance at this building. And the photos, most of them related to the day of takeover, November the 4th, 1979, and the days later. For example, this picture, this photo at the top, it shows the main entrance of the building, the place that you have entered. Some Iranian students fold an American flag, try to burn it, which was the symbol of victory at that time. And the picture at the middle, an American Marine wear a mask, try to prevent Iranian students to come inside the building. At that time, Iranians were not armed, had no weapon. And the American Guardians and Marines didn't shoot anybody. Americans only used tear gases during the 2 hours of struggles at this compound. So nobody were injured, nobody were killed, everything was quite calm. The 6 Americans were held in Tehran, 3 of them in Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs office, rest of them in this place. And after 2 weeks, by command of Imam Khomeini, late leader of revolution, Iranian released 13 of the hostages, including female and black guys. On this picture, you can see some of those hostages in press conference at this embassy. So every day, thousands of the Iranian people demonstrated in front of the embassy on the streets to support the movement of the students. Actually, taking over embassy was not actually commanded action, or it was not governmental action. It was actually some group of Iranian students that they were volunteer people who decide to take over this place. First reason was accepting the criminal king of Iran in the United States, and they refused for returning to Iran or trial him. According to the Vienna Convention, they must trial him or return him to country. Also, interference by Americans in Iranian affairs during previous decades. At the time, especially Pahlavi regime, Pahlavi II, and after that, we have considered the coup in 1953 in Iran. All of these reasons show that there are no other way, no other options but actually take over this place and stop those crimes by Americans in Iran. I have to emphasize that the hostages were living in comfortable conditions. They were fed every day with American food. They were living in comfortable conditions, taking shower every day, using the TV and watching the movies, reading the books in the library, and do exercise and sports in the garden. They were not actually hostages. They were like a guest in this place. Nobody were tortured. Nobody were actually injured during hostage crisis at this place. Even they had a Christmas party inside the embassy. You can see this photo. Information. The transmitter received via this system from embassy in Tehran to Washington.
Okay, so this ball was part of a satellite transmitter, okay?
According to international rules and Vienna Convention, if one embassy tried to establish kind of a transmitter in the area of the embassy, that country must ask from for example, Iran to put that as just normal transmitter. But this transmitter was located in this embassy that Iranian government, even before revolution, had no idea about it. So it is quite against the rules and the laws.
I'll have to check on that.
Yeah,
because I agree. Yeah. Okay, that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah. Some portraits on the wall. Among those students who participated in the takeover of this place, and years later they were killed in the battlefield during war between Iran and Iraq. 8 years resistance against Iraq. Invading. They were volunteer people who went to the front line. They were not in military service. According to Vienna Convention and international laws, none of the embassies all over the world must be used as an intelligence office or security office. But according to memories of the last American ambassador, Mr. Sullivan, and these rooms that we are going to visit today, one of the most important rules of this country, this actually embassy at this country in Iran, was the security, intelligence, and espionage, actually actions. They were played as espionage rules in Iran. From this part, we are going to enter the department of CIA. Only the intelligent agents were permitted to come to this part, not the other personals. Again, the corridor is separated by the heavy lucky door, which was very protected. And you may step forward.
And this says there is no time for imperialism in Iran anymore.
Yeah, these sentences were written by students on the day of takeover, November the 4th, 1979. They're completely original. On the top it says, this place, den of espionage, must be closed. Viva to Khomeini, late leader of revolution. And as you mentioned before, there is no time for imperialism in Iran anymore. Working officers were separated from each other by electrical and mechanical lucky doors. This is an example of electrical lock, like over there, and also we have a mechanical lock here. Both of them were working simultaneously.
Okay.
Please. Some radio communication systems, transmitter and receivers, beacons, you can see, were located at inside this room. Some teletypes, audio messaging, signals, receivers. Even American, they could controlling their ships, their navy in Persian Gulf via these two systems. Also, this photo shows exactly this room on the day of takeover. Listening all the phone lines in Iran via these two systems, especially Royal Palace before Victory Revolution, and then Imam Khomeini residence after Victory Islamic Revolution.
So you're saying they could monitor private conversations?
That's right.
I'll have to check into that one too. I didn't know about that. It's good to get the Iranian point of view, as I've told my guide many times.
Mr. Sullivan, last American ambassador, he confessed on his memories book that he went to the Mohammed Reza Pahlavi king office one day, and the king, who knew that the Americans were listening to his phone line, he asked from American to just don't listen my private office. But they were also do the same. They did the same. This actually room, it was the most important and top secure place of the embassy, kind of the heart. As you see, it is separated from the main building. It was built in the United States, carried on by helicopter, put it down from the roof to here. There were several instructions to opening the door. First of all, standing on this pad, maybe measuring the weight by this sensor, and additionally using some specific keys, switches, turning the handles clockwise, counterclockwise. Then the green lights light up and the door was automatically opened in 15 seconds. Pay attention to the thickness of the door and come inside. ببینید فریترین بخش سفارت که اینجا بود برای اینکه اطلاعات خیلی مهم و محرمانه و طبقه‌بندی حفاظت شده ارسال ما دیدیم. The most important and top secret messages, signals were received by these systems from embassy in Tehran to Washington, either White House, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, or a central base of CIA. Many of the messages were encoded, so the personnel who were working here had no idea about the content of the texts. One of the officers must put the papers and documents into this box, then closing the door, pushing the ready button. From the next room, another guy will take the papers, documents by other systems and other equipments that you will visit today. They could decode or encode messages. The personnel, 3 or 4 personnel who were working at this room, had no direct connections to other guys over there due to security measures.
And that's an air conditioner, American.
Second part of previous room. Same security instructions and layers, but the different personnel were working here. The box were taking the documents, and via these systems they could decode and encoding messages. There were some specific cassette tapes that if you put it into the normal radio or player, you could only hear a beep sound. But if you put into these cases, you could read the messages on the screen, display screen, typing, writing, decoding, encoding, and finally printing on the papers. And this is an old generation of the scanner, and I think kind of the printer. Covered in ambassador office. Pay attention to different steel layers. It was very strong and protected. Finally, Iranian students, by derailing, they could open it. They took that box out, and they discovered some classified documents and especially weapons and guns from ambassador office. As I told you before, American resisted 2 hours to destroy top secret and classified documents in different ways. First of all, the most important and the documents which were classified in the most security parts, they were destroyed in powdering shapes, like this one, in tiny and small pieces. At least 2 big boxes like this one, compound like this one, components like this one, were discovered in this place. Unfortunately, they were useless, and they were including papers, cassettes, microfilms, and at the same time, American tried to destroy some of the documents by this giant blue machine to burning them. Not only the papers, even some electrical chipsets and some motherboards of computers were destroyed via this system. As one of the Americans was in a rush on that day, he put too much documents into this device. It got stuck and it stopped working. Later, students could take some of the papers completely intact from this machine they took out. But American didn't give up. They used another machine, you can see on the photo over there. Shredding, cutting down the papers on tiny pieces. When students came inside this room, they faced the mountains of the papers, covered all the surface of the ground. It is interesting to know that it took more than 3 years. Iranian put all the pieces next to each other like a puzzle, and they could reconstruct and repair those documents. All of them right now have been published publicly as a book in the name of Documents from US Den of Espionage. You can find them, read all of them, either in English or Russian.
Are they on the internet?
Yeah, of course, free. You can free download it on the internet. The last room is here. Yeah. Okay.
And this is the
Paper for yours.
forgery room. Okay.
Copying, producing any kind of the fake identification cards and passports from different nationalities, not only Iranian or American. American spies, they created passports from Belgium, Algeria, Turkey, some Arabic countries, and even Spain on this room. Iranian students later discovered some stamps related to Tehran arrival and departure airports. Those actually stamps on that part, they were related to the stamps to put it on the different pages of the passports. All the actions were quite against the diplomatic protocols and international laws, so we call this place den of espionage, not a normal embassy. Even you can see the actual instruction to creation of for creation of numbers of the cars in Tehran.
American hostages were held.
American hostages were held in this compound for 6 months, up to April 1980. In April 1980, United States Army initiated military operation to rescue the hostages. They crossed Iranian borders and boundaries secretly via some helicopters and transport airplanes. They landed in the desert in the middle of Iran called Taras Desert for refueling. They had idea to come to Tehran, rescue the hostages from embassy, and killing all the Iranian students. But when they landed in the desert, after a few hours, they faced a sandstorm. Some of the helicopters crashed.
Two smashed into each other.
And the mission failed. 8 American commandos were killed, and the rest of them ran away from Iran. Jimmy Carter next day declared that it was a shame for America. So it was the first and the last efforts for American to rescue the hostages. After that, all of hostages were separated from each other in other cities of Iran, like Shiraz, Isfahan, Tabriz, Mashhad. And finally, after 444 days, all of them were gathered again in Tehran by command of Imam Khomeini and decision of Iranian parliament. They will decide to release all of the hostages back to home without any casualty. Nobody were killed, injured, or tortured. And also, and kind of the agreement between Iran and United States was actually conducted, and they signed the agreement called Algeria Manifesto. For example, if Iran returned all of the hostages, American will stop any kind of the intervention in Iranian affairs. American will release some of the blocked Iranian monies on the American bank, and the same actions that most of them never happened by American. They stopped, they blocked Iranian monies on the banks. They put different sanctions still today on Iranian people.
That's new information, okay.
Companies, organizations still accuse Iranian as a supporter of terrorists. Just few months, I think 1 month ago, Donald Trump, current president of the United States, called Iranian people as a terrorist nation. And still propaganda, Iran-phobia, and still the same advertisement against the Iranian people, Iranian government, and the same policy. I think nothing has been changed, at least by American politicians.
Well, we're looking outside the window now, where the hostages were held for many months. And there's the street. This is in regards to that Iran Airlines that was shot down by a U.S. Navy ship. America said it was an accident, but Iran, of course, doesn't believe that. Yes, I believe this happened in 1988, this tragedy. Here's a closer view of those American officials.
Helicopters, a few aircrafts, and trained ones.
Okay, this is where the American satellite equipment was located. It's all covered by this thing now. There's really nothing inside except for a broomstick and a tiny piece of equipment, which I can't make out. Just a quick peek inside, really nothing to see. No idea what that is. And Arash doesn't know either. I think this one is anti-Israeli. This is part of the Delta mission remnant. This is from the failed attempt by the Americans on April 25th, 1980 to rescue the hostages. They ran into a sandstorm and then two planes smashed into each other, and a number of several soldiers were killed. There's a picture of it there. And it says years later, parts of this destroyed helicopter was brought here from Tabas to be on the site for visitors. So 8 Americans were killed. This is there. And there were 8 U.S. Navy RH-53D choppers that tried to free the hostages. This carving is of an Iranian foot putting his foot on the flag of America. And as we can see at the entrance, there's not much left of the American emblem. And to the left of the entrance, this is a carving of an Iranian Revolutionary Guard. And again, at the top of the building, again, you can see what's left of the American emblem. So now you see the American flag engraved on the road, and all the cars are riding over it. This is more. It's on the sidewalk where people can walk on, so. And this is my ticket for the where I went into the American Embassy, and it says on here Museum of Anti-Arrogance. But I did tell the guide there off camera when he asked me what do I think of the Iranian students taking over the American Embassy, and I just said flat out they were wrong to do that. There's better ways of solving differences. And he understood, and although he did say, well, they were spying on us, and he said you shouldn't spy on your friends. Well, I cannot disagree with that. And anyway, when the tour ended, I just said I hope that it won't be long before Iran and will reconcile with America and the West. But I will certainly be keeping this ticket to the American Embassy as a precious souvenir. And one last thing I would like to say, at the American Embassy, or also what they call the Den of Espionage, they do have a guest book, and I signed it. Fascinating Tour, Julian Mazur, Toronto, Canada, December the 4th, 2017.